Hello and welcome to episode of the Joyful Friar podcast. I'm Father Nathan Castle, and I'm grateful that you're choosing to spend a little time with me and my guest today. My guest today is, say it for us, please.
Manuel Guzman.
He's my friend, and I've known him for years, but I hardly ever call him by his full name, and it's just when he says it has a resonance. Anyways, delightful guy. Manny, tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and kind of how we know each other.
Thanks so much for having me, Father Nathan. So I'm a seventh generation Arizonian. My family is one of those areas where the border moved around them. And so we know each other through campus ministry, really. I'm here at the University of Arizona's Newman Center, which is about 100 miles south of where I grew up in a small town of Superior, Arizona. I'm a lay Dominican, a wonderful opportunity to just explore what is truth. And, Dominic, his last name was also Guzman.
Yes.
Made me pretty popular. Got here and there were Dominicans around me. That was a connection right away. It's deepened in me as well.
Right. And we're coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, and you went to school here at the University of Arizona, right?
Studied under Father Bob Burns in the Religious Studies Department, and it's a joy to be able to give back.
What's your job title?
Yeah, the title is business manager, but in practice at a campus ministry, we're all campus ministers. So I do help run the back end of stuff, but it really is a ministry of presence and walking with students. And I know I received a lot when I was here in undergrad, and it's great to be able to keep that going.
For our audience, I invited Manny to be on this episode because All Souls or Dia de los Muertos, and I thought it would be interesting. And so much of the work that I'm known for online has to do with souls that have died, and the ongoing life of a person after we leave this body is a lot of what I do. You have a particular expertise, I think, all the way from childhood about being immersed in a culture where Dia de los Muertos is celebrated. I sometimes think of you as being an expert in being fragmented. Tell our people a little bit about what it feels like to not be whole, to be pulled in many directions at once.
There's a little slogan that I say a lot of: never boring.
Never boring.
I've never had the same day twice. My role can be, someone coming in for a parking pass, to unclogging a toilet, to needing to counsel a student that just had a rough exam, to the joyful things of joining the community for prayer, in our chapels. So it just kind of depends on the day and what's going on. And you're right. It's like I have to do bookkeeping, and then I have to help a parent, get paperwork together to baptize their child, but also invite them into the depth of what that means, right?
I came looking for you a little earlier today because the internet was out. So so sometimes Manny's got the job description at this Newman Center at University of Arizona where it's such a grab bag that it would be easy to feel pulled in a lot of different directions at once. And I feel like plenty of people listening or watching this probably know what that feels like. Well, the idea of being whole is somehow being able to move through your life without letting it pull you apart, with having a kind of, I don't know, a sense of oneness, wholeness, goodness, peace, to be able to move through whatever is in front of you and do your duty. And anyway, to that, we have All Souls. And on that day, we don't presume that all of these people are whole. Maybe they're three quarters, maybe they're halfway, or they're on their way towards the fullness of all that they could be, but die at a time when that process was still in the works. And so I honor my parents on that day because I think they were wonderful people. And on All Souls Day, I think of that as their feast day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, it really is a little bit of a season that leads up to the actual day. Just so many traditions of remembering, this idea of keeping the presence of these people alive, the legacy alive in ourselves, and the connections that we have. Absolutely, that ties in. And I think saints, we have saints that we could name in our own lives, right? That are heroes in our families. And then the sense of all souls. It's a seamless transition into all of that.
You grew up in a small town called Superior, which is, what is it, a little more than an hour's drive north of Tucson?
That's about 100 miles, so just shy of 2 hours.
What was that like for you growing up there?
Well, I would say it was more with respect to my family. The cemetery in our hometown is the movies make them to be spooky places, and that was never my experience with the cemetery. It was hallowed ground, right? To that word, this sense of, this is where my loved ones are resting. The ground is blessed. Many times we're there for those blessings at the cemetery for funerals. So, it wasn't a scary place for me.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a tradition where, the graves were regularly maintained as a sign of respect and honor. And it wasn't just about cleaning up, it was also telling the stories. Here's what this grandfather did, or this grandmother. And some of them are like, she had a lot of attitude, and it was awesome. It's just these memories of keeping them alive. And so my experience of especially Dia de los Muertos would kick that up a notch. I have a memory of cleaning with my grandfather, and there was a jug of water attached with some wire on the side of his grandmother's grave. And I said, "Well, Tata, what's that?" And he said, "Well, that's for it's for our loved ones." And it didn't feel weird at all. It made sense. It's like, oh yeah, they might get thirsty.
Is that what it was? Some idea of giving them a drink?
Exactly.
Reminds me of Egypt with all those, pharaohs having all kind of food and drink buried with them.
Exactly. That same sense of connection.
Some people might have their experience of cemeteries might be corporately owned places with lawns where all the graves have to be flat so that the mower can go over them, and where part of what you paid for was the corporate maintenance of it. It doesn't sound like what you're talking about in Superior.
No, this is small town, almost Old West kind of feel to it. Our town doesn't have this giant crew of people. So like, one of the things that I do now is I help organize cleanups periodically over there. And, I get so moved by the messages that we'll receive from people that are all over the world, literally, that say, "Thank you. I can't make it over there myself. So thank you for taking care of my loved ones' resting places." Or maybe their health and their age doesn't allow them to do that.
It sounds like you're doing social media cemetery cleanup. Is that what you're talking about? How would these people know that you're doing it?
Absolutely. We are trying to generate more volunteers as well, and also this sense of, we have to remember, we have to take care of our people. Let's not wait for somebody else to go clean the graves, or just be worried about the ones that we know. The entire space is sacred, is hallowed ground. And
so do you bring a lunch or something? It sounds like it's a lot of physical labor, so it sounds like that you want to take a break at some point. And
we do it very early in the morning because of Arizona's wonderful heat. And make sure that we provide water and shade, and we'll provide some food. The idea of celebration atmosphere is tied to all of this. Not to be afraid of death, but it really is a celebration of that connection with our people, no, they're not here physically with us anymore, but we honor their memory, we tell their stories, um, and we are connected to that to then, be able to keep that legacy going in our own lives.
So you brought a little show and tell, didn't you?
Sure, I
You have
did.
to whatever you show, you have to describe, because some people are listening on a podcast and others are watching on a video.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Dia de los Muertos, I think in 2022 is we're in this post Coco era with Disney's movie Coco, which I think also allowed a lot of people to rediscover the Book of Life, which came out a few years prior to that, which that a playful way of describing the Mexican celebrations, and really this is pre-colonial. Honoring of our loved ones. And after the church had its presence in the New World, I think something beautiful was born by this coming together of not being afraid of death, but also honoring them with All Souls Day. And so that's why this intersection all comes. So there's I brought these are corn husk marigolds. That are made. Fresh ones are always great, but in the Arizona heat, these ones don't wilt. But this flower is representative. You'll see this in a lot of what are called ofrendas, or altars. They're offerings. This sense of connection, especially around Dia de los Muertos, for our loved ones. We also have some hummingbirds here. Hummingbirds, butterflies, these images of visitation, of presence, I see a hummingbird and I smile and I think of my grandmother. It's like she always had hummingbirds buzzing around her home, and if I can smile and just say, I love you, Nana. That's what this celebration is about, is again calling the presence back into our awareness.
I do the same. My mom had a great love of hummingbirds. She had a hummingbird feeder that hung over the sink, so that when she was at the sink doing dishes or anything else in the kitchen, she might look out the window and see the hummingbirds. And then it was easy to buy for her, because glass hummingbirds are pretty easy to find in gift shops.
Mm.
And I could always get her a next hummingbird, and she never got tired of getting a new one. So they would hang on a little, fishing line and catch the light and stuff. Whenever I see a hummingbird, it makes me think of my mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And presence is different after death, but it's not emptiness. And it's so important to be able to tell those stories and call it to mind. And this time of year really just helps that as well. And again, it's celebration. So you see ofrendas that are made, and it includes the food that they liked.
Well, tell us more about that. Is the ofrenda at the grave site, or is it at home, or both?
I think it's all of the above nowadays. I think traditionally it was at the cemeteries, and in parts of Mexico especially, that still continues. In my hometown, it hasn't been so much the cemeteries, but more at home. This idea of a little prayer corner, with loved ones' pictures and candles, and maybe a little cup of coffee.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, loved her coffee, and just little pieces like that.
I think some people that don't really know ofrendas might think about a funeral they've been to at the back in the vestibule of the church, or at the back of the funeral home, where there's some display of artifacts. For my mom, here's a shout out to the Houston Astros, who are in the World Series for the 4th time in 6 years. And there she is. And she was such an Astros fan that we would have had that on her ofrenda had she had one. That's kind of what you mean, isn't it? Some things that bring a smile and that remind you of something happy in the life of the person you're honoring.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's key. Well, again, it's telling the stories.
Yeah. At the cemetery, would there be any kind of formal ritualized prayer or no?
Um, it can be that. I think that depends on the church and
Uh,
the presence in the community. I think for the people, it would be more of a celebration kind of piece. Again, making sure the graves were clean
yes.
as a sign of honor, but drink, song, food, all of that.
Uh,
And I know, at least for me, prayer is absolutely a piece of that as
yeah.
well.
I know at the cemetery that I will be buried in Benicia, California, our Dominican cemetery, there's always a mass said on that day. It's a Catholic cemetery, so and we Dominicans own it. So it might be a little different than a public cemetery, but we have a mass on that day and people come out and it's usually very windy. So everything that you bring to the mass has to be kind of tied down to keep it from floating away, you know.
Yeah, we just got a new priest in my hometown, and I was pleased to see that he's going to be offering two masses on All Souls Day, one at the church, but then he's going to do one at the cemetery. And
And then we also have the practice that isn't just among Latino American Catholic folk. I think a lot of the other, European immigrant subsets of the Catholic Church in the U.S. have at least the custom of a Book of the Dead, of writing down the names of your dead and having them. Do you do that? Are you in charge of that at Newman Center?
yeah, so the entire month of November is the month of remembrance, and so we do display a book where we invite our people to write the names of their loved ones in the book. We pray for them by intention as a community during that month. So again, it's just this season of remembrance and connection.
Hmm. What about sugar skulls? You see them more and more common now. Was that a part of your growing up?
Not necessarily. I think that's a piece that has become more popular because of Coco. But again, the sense of not being afraid of death, almost mocking death, um, that's woven into the playfulness of what it means to celebrate this holiday. It's not Mexican Halloween. Uh,
Yes.
it really is about telling the stories. And so sugar skulls, or just even the image of skeletons, was this representation of those who had passed.
Hmm.
Um, and again, not something to be afraid of, but a way to describe uh, the different place that they're in.
The overarching story for us is that death is a moment that we move through and we keep going. And even though uh, when we've just been faced with the death of a loved one, there's that empty feeling of loss and separation and so on. But we try to remind ourselves that's only one side of the coin, that our loved ones are still alive. They needn't be thought of as far, far away. They can be thought of as nearby. It makes it easier that way. And I I can't tell you how many times in the course of a day I'm talking to somebody I know that has died and presuming their presence. I just grew up in a family where that was commonplace. It sounds like you did too.
Oh, absolutely. I've lost all my grandparents, and I talk to them a lot. My Nana Mary had this beautiful tradition where when it was raining, because we don't get a lot of rain in the desert, even if it was torrentially raining, she would just open the door and step outside, let the water hit her, and say, "I'm getting my blessing,
Uh,
blessing." And my whole family, we do that. It's like it's that connection again, just this sense of gratitude, and now that she's passed, it's it's a beautiful moment of just celebrating the love that still binds us.
well, I wasn't born in Arizona, but I got here as quick as I could. My mom was born in Louisiana, and we were from Texas, right across the border, and she had a bumper sticker that said that I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as quick as I could. And one of the things I learned, and there, Southeast Texas, where I'm from, is very swampy and it rains all the time. Uh, And so rain was no big deal for me until I moved to the desert. And then we get these enormous monsoon storms in the summertime. And you'd think the last thing you ought to do is stand outside in a lightning storm, but that's what people in Arizona do. They just they want to be out with all this energy and stand in the lightning and get rained on. It's
Yeah,
hard.
and social media lights up as well,
Yeah, that's right.
know the weather report.
Sure. Well, do you have a parting message for our audience today on this topic or anything we've talked about?
Yeah, I think it's so important. You were talking about wholeness, Father Nathan, mind, body, spirit. And this time of year just really allows us to call to mind the spirits of our loved ones that have gone before us, to tell their stories, to strengthen that connection that is family, is those that we've crossed paths with, and that's the vitality of our life, and so that's what this expression is about. It isn't just about looking backwards; it's also looking forward and being strengthened by those who have come before us. So
Good.
appreciate you giving me a chance to share a little bit.
Sure. Sure. And I'm hoping that anybody that listens to or sees this little episode is encouraged to tap into that, to in prayer remember and laugh with and call upon for strength and encouragement uh, the the souls of the ones who have already proven their love. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for all the good work that you do. And those of you that tuned in today, if you would like to know more about anything that we talked about here or would like to be in touch, Manny, how could people get in touch with you if they were inclined to do so?
Yeah, they'd be welcome to shoot me an email. It's manny@uacatholic.org. Always happy to talk with others about the ways that they can express their connection with their loved ones.
Okay, and that's manny@uacatholic.org. And then my website is nathan-castle.com. You can always make a comment there. Anyway, God bless you and thanks for being with us today.